This meeting will come to order. This is the May meeting of the Bloomington Transportation Commission. Can we please have a roll call?
Should be not muted. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Kopic?
Here.
Stramitis?
Here.
Binder? Vollen?
Here.
Drummy?
Here.
Flaherty? Davis? And Strasburg.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Today's agenda includes reports from staff, including road closure on West Clubhouse Drive Bridge, 180-day order update, a presentation of a pedestrian facilities operation plan, a citywide traffic signal retiming project update, traffic calming and greenways program request for 2026, and an update on the Rogers Street project, as well as feedback on the ADA transition plan. There are no cases scheduled for today. As far as items that are not on the docket for discussion, we will take up the College Mall Covenanter intersection evaluation update, the Smith and Morningside intersection evaluation update, and Carlos Street's Title 15 amendment ordinance being brought by Councilmember Rosenbarger that I've asked to be put on the docket. And then we will go to general public comment before we adjourn. Let's start with reports from commissioners. Are there any commissioners who have a report they'd like to make? On my right? On my left? Mr. Strasburg.
Yeah, partly to inform the work that we do here, I'm working on a project to bike or walk every navigable path in Bloomington, including every cul-de-sac, bike path, and apartment complex. I'm currently about 340 miles into this out of 420, so I have about another 90 miles to go. I may have more reflections when I get closer, but one I'll share now is that overall, Bloomington has a lot of streets that are comfortable to bike on. We think of them often through a car lens of the busy roads we take from our home to shopping or work, but many of the miles of roads we have in Bloomington are residential and quiet, and I've now experienced getting from place to place from many directions, and overall it's been fairly a pleasant experience to see the city by bike. So maybe more when I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Strasburg. I'll just point out something we were talking about before the meeting, which is it's pouring rain out as we speak. And I was driving here on East 3rd Street where the water is flooding so much that cars were actually driving the speed limit of 25 miles an hour. So I've already started fielding requests from commissioners as to whether or not we can arrange to flood the streets more often so as to slow traffic down. Anyway, let's go now to reports from staff. Let's start with item 1 on the closure of the bridge on Clubhouse Drive. Andrew Seabour, welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. Andrew Seabour, City Engineer. Just wanted to provide the Commission an update on something that recently had a press release and something that will also have additional dialogue at tomorrow's Board of Public Works meeting. But on Friday of last week, the city closed a section of Clubhouse Drive on the approaches to a bridge near the old State Road 37 intersection in Lower Cascades. This was in response to some information that the county shared with the city after they conducted a routine inspection of the facility and determined that the structure had some deficiencies and essentially suggested a lower weight limit on the structure. The report didn't necessarily suggest the bridge or the road be closed, but based on past experience on other structures that have relatively very low weight limits, the reality is that a lot of vehicles exceed those weight limits, and so just to reduce the risk, the expected risk that some drivers would exceed that weight limit, the city closed a section of that road just to, in the spirit of public safety. Some interesting challenges with this structure are that the state law doesn't make it clear who owns the facility. It is, by definition, it is more than 20 feet in span, and so that generally takes it out of the city's responsibility. And there are some interesting components about structures over 20 feet that are typically the county's responsibility, but this bridge doesn't meet those. So it's sort of in this awkward place right now. But right now, the county has shared the information, the city has taken some action to address safety, and we expect to have additional dialogue on it. But tomorrow at the Board of Public Works meeting, the board will be just essentially validating the decision to close the road until the facility is brought into compliance, that something that could carry a higher weight. And on that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that report. Are there questions from commissioners about this? On my left, Mr. Strasburg.
Will the facility remain open to pedestrians and cyclists?
I think there is, I believe, a multi-use path adjacent to the structure, but that is a detail it's all moving very fast, but like another structure on Allen Street, it seems very possible to keep it open to those users.
Thank you.
To my right, I have struggled to understand the relationship between city and county with respect to bridges. So it was my understanding that basically any bridge in the city is effectively something that the county has to maintain and manage. But now you're saying that there's a kind of a lower limit to that. Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, I think if you go back a few years in time, generally the state law was a little more straightforward, that if a structure was greater than 20 feet in length, that was generally the county's responsibility. But in recent years, the code was updated to basically state that some reasonable things, that like if a new structure was going to be added, that the county would be coordinated with and consulted as a part of the design and construction of such a structure. But there was also a clause that said if a bridge was not inspected by the county for a certain period of time, and they have not accepted into their inventory, it is not their responsibility. So this fits into that unique category where it is not by state code clearly a county-maintained facility.
So they haven't inspected it lately. That was the...
They have been, but they didn't start until, I believe, 2024 or something to that effect.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, the city can still build a bridge, add to a bridge, do what the city thinks it should, as long as they coordinate with the county, but it doesn't mean the county owns the structure. We're not going to build any covered bridges. I'm just trying to understand it.
I think generally the city's not in the business of building bridges.
Okay.
We don't have that expertise, and most of our roads already exist, and they generally have bridges maintained and owned by the county. But in potentially like new developments where there are new roads being built, in those situations we would generally expect that the developer, in coordination with the city, are also very much in coordination with the county through that process.
So in a way, it's sort of like what we do now with building permits, that we have a sort of a contract. All of this one is kind of required by state law.
That's what I would expect, and we would want to make sure that the county is consulted and accepts that.
Got it. Sorry?
So the county has a bridge fund, which is why they're responsible for bridges over 20 feet. So the fact that you just don't inspect them makes it a city bridge? I mean, the other bridge is the Allen Street Bridge, the one by the traffic building?
Correct.
And how is that not a county bridge? It's been there for 100 years.
The Allen Street Bridge was a bridge managed and maintained by the county. They inspected it through one of their efforts, basically said that it should have a certain weight limit. But with a storage facility nearby, there were frequent trucks exceeding that weight limit, and so decided to close it. So then the interesting thing is, if it's closed to automobile traffic, then is it a bridge or is it not a bridge at a certain point? So that is generally, I would, from my perspective, expect that it is still seen as a bridge, but it has been sitting like that for some time.
Renee McGritt, eat your heart out. This is or is not a bridge. Any more questions? Thanks for the report. Let's move on now to the 180-day order update.
Yeah, so next one is me as well. So just wanted to continue the trend of keeping you posted on 180-day orders. Since our last meeting, I did issue 3 new 180-day orders. The first one, 26-01, is essentially recognizing, I think, a series of stop-controlled intersections that have been in place for years that the city accepted into our inventory a couple of years ago, and we just missed adding these to code through that process. So just bringing that into compliance with what was always the plan and has been in place. The next one is 26-02, related to traffic control in the Atlas on 17th subdivision. This is a specific example of something we brought to you last month, and so essentially just doing the order, which we presented and you supported at our last meeting. Why we presented that one to you and not the prior is we did make some changes from what was in the plan as a result of some feedback from transit and police. So that's why we did want to bring that to you first. And then the third is a change in speed limit on East 11th Street, where we recently installed some traffic calming. This was a project that we brought to you last year, and you supported as well. So those are the new orders that we issued, and then I also wanted to just note that 2 additional orders have been extended since our last meeting, continuing the on-street parking clarifications we made by the Mills Pool on West 14th Street, and some parking changes on First Street adjacent to the Hopewell neighborhood. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions on 180-day orders? To my left? To my right? Seeing none, thank you for that report. Let's go now to the pedestrian facilities operation plan. Who's presenting this? I see Adam Wason from Public Works.
Good evening, Commissioners. Adam Wason, Public Works Director. Just wanted to give you an update on some work we've been doing across several different departments over the last year plus and here recently. Since probably budget hearings this past fall, we've been discussing the idea of working on a pedestrian facilities plan. Originally, we were talking about it from the perspective of a sidewalk master plan, but realized that, a sidewalk master plan doesn't actually incorporate all the pedestrian facilities we have across the city. So we have been working with planning and transportation staff, engineering staff, and other city departments to start putting together the framework of what would be involved with this, and then want to, over the next couple months, engage with Transportation Commission and others on taking some of the next steps. What we're really working on here and looking at is both a historical review of how have we gotten where we're at with sidewalks in the community? What has city code looked at over time? Who's responsible for what? And a big part of the responsibility component is even defining what roles and responsibilities exist across the various city departments. This is now my 3rd administration I've worked for. We have turnover, and just really defining across departments as staff turns over and everything else, that folks know who's responsible for what areas of the pedestrian facilities across the community. Good examples, which department would be responsible for vegetative encroachment versus what department's responsible for putting forward contracts for repair, just all the different roles and responsibilities across the city, because that hits hand from an inspection perspective. It hits obviously Public Works and the street division, engineering gets involved quite a bit, et cetera. Also defining the private property owner responsibilities, making that very clear based on what city code says. We're also going to be looking at and providing a lot of information on what programs exist elsewhere and in Bloomington that are having success getting sidewalks improved. So this could range from I'll just give you an example. For the last several years, we've had budgeted dollars in the Public Works budget for what we call the Sidewalk Assistance Program. It's intended to assist low-income individuals with sidewalk repairs. We're not super successful getting that money out the door because even though we're able to fund up to 50% and such, it is often a cost that a low-income member of the community can't even absorb at a 50% rate. So looking at what programs exist elsewhere to help our residents make sidewalk repairs that are their responsibilities. Looking at, beyond that, looking at our maintenance and operations program. Councilmember Flaherty and some of the council members last week had a deliberation session about snow control when it comes to pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure across the community. This would dovetail right into that, help define the roles and responsibilities, look at how we prioritize where we make those efforts. This last winter with that major snowfall provided a great example of we can't clear everything, but what should we focus on as far as high priority networks to get folks where they need to be. Long story short of it is we've been working internally a lot on this, and now we're going to be coming to the stage where we start putting out information on what we've collected, get it to the Transportation Commission in a more formal way, see where the Transportation Commission members want to be more involved or less involved. So that was just the brief update. Happy to answer any questions you have and see if I can't answer them.
Thanks for that presentation. Are there any questions from commissioners? To my right, to my left. Mr. Drumming.
In terms of sidewalks, how long, if we put in a new sidewalk, how long do we expect that it will last?
Sidewalks, a properly installed sidewalk that doesn't have street trees that are going to possibly, impact it within 5 or 10 years. Sidewalks, good concrete work should be 20 to 30 year minimum. Always dependent upon the quality of the concrete, other things like that. But yeah, at least a 20-year investment, I would think.
And that leads me to my next question. I have some experience with street trees. I know more about street trees than I'd like to know. But is there a way?
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth.
Is there a way to have street trees and have nice sidewalks?
Yeah, so that's a big part of this too. Is that we'll look at is how does the Unified Development Ordinance impact the sidewalk network? Well, we require street trees for all the right reasons. Is there a standard that we should change so that the street trees are in a bigger plot that aren't at as high of a risk of heaving a sidewalk? Ideally, yes, but there's also all kinds of limitations when it comes to the development ordinance, et cetera. But and that's the other part of defining roles and responsibilities. In our sidewalk plans that we've provided to the Board of Public Works over time and such, it was in my first years in Public Works, as we were really thinking about sidewalks and such, the conversation came up about we were sending letters to folks to fix sidewalks that were damaged by city street trees. So we technically own the tree. How can we expect the homeowner then to make that repair if it's a tree that we own that damaged the sidewalk? So for the last 12-ish years, we've taken the perspective of if it's street tree damaged, we're going to try to fix it when it comes to our attention and within the resources we have. But it is a really good example of a question that should be discussed of, what's the ideal situation to put a street tree in and have a sidewalk last as long as it possibly can in good condition. Yep.
Further questions to my left? I have a couple questions.
Sure.
One is, do you see this as becoming sort of a component of the transportation plan?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one talking point I didn't get to. Incorporating this into the transportation plan, the Safe Streets for All program, it all kind of melds together, absolutely.
So it's kind of like a sub-plan that's good.
Yep.
How long do you expect the draft to take to
I would
finish?
like to work with you folks over the next couple months and kind of final. We've got a lot of the bones in place. We've got a lot of structure, but yeah.
Well, I just mean we're starting with a staff draft, and then you'll bring it to us, and we'll talk about what we want to do with it, if anything.
Yeah.
So just trying to get a sense of how much more time
I'd say over the next quarter, trying to wrap it all up.
Okay, so maybe August, September,
yeah.
something like that. Okay.
The other big component of this, too, that feeds in is we're wrapping up our our sidewalk condition index data collection efforts with IMS, our subcontractor. This is the first time we've gone down every single city sidewalk with a UTV type of equipment that is, and we're going through all the quality control, quality analysis right now with them. We're hopeful that data is ready to go on the website in the next couple weeks. It's been a long, arduous process of going through and working with them on it, but in the end, we're going to have the most robust set of data on the conditions of our sidewalk ever.
Okay. Well, thanks for that.
Absolutely.
And we look forward to seeing, did you want us to look at any,
We'll work through Iris and everyone and get distributed what we want to you guys, the commission members, to offer review on.
because if you're looking for some feedback to structure it, when we have spare CPU cycles in our agenda, it might be a good opportunity to put that discussion in, but even before the draft is done, if you need the help.
Absolutely.
All right.
Perfect.
Thanks so much.
Thank you all.
Let's move on now to an update on the citywide traffic signal retiming project. Who is presenting that?
Hello, John Garzi, traffic engineer. This is a general update on the city's traffic signal retiming project. The goal of this work is to improve safety, improve consistency across the system, and make signal operations more predictable for all users. So far, we have updated 63 signalized intersections across 9 corridors. Most coordinated corridors have now been retimed, including downtown corridors like College Avenue, Walnut Street, where signal timing was adjusted to better align with the city's 20-mile-per-hour downtown speed limits. The project has also included several pedestrian safety improvements. That includes leading pedestrian intervals, where pedestrians receive a short heads-up start before vehicles receive a green indication, as well as rest and walk, where the walk indication displays automatically. At this point, the College Mall Road corridor is the only corridor still to be implemented, along with isolated intersections throughout the city. In addition to the overall project rollout, staff is also conducting field reviews to verify the timing that's operating as intended and to identify opportunities for additional refinement. And with that, I'm open to some questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Garzi. Are there any questions on this report from members? To my right? To my left? Mr. Stossberg.
We have budget challenges with the equipment upgrades to have all the signals timed as we would like. Is the equipment ready for the kind of retiming we want to do?
For the general retiming, yes. There are other changes that we would need to do upgrades to the signals, like doing protected only left turns. But for implementing LPIs or leading pedestrian intervals and changing the phasing, we have all the proper equipment for that.
Thank you.
I'm a little confused about the distinction you made about College Mall Road. It says, you're saying that the only corridor that has implemented signal timing is College Mall, or it's the last one that hasn't?
That's the only one that has not been retimed.
So everything else has been retimed?
Every other coordinated corridor where the intersection before it is timed so that cars moving down it can progress, that's the only one that hasn't been retimed.
Okay, how many such corridors are there in Bloomington?
Like that, there are 9.
Did you say 9?
Yes.
Oh, I saw,
Some
sorry.
of them
I
are
just,
counted
it was,
twice.
It was right there. It was right
Yeah.
there. Okay.
Like
Great.
3rd Street is counted twice for the western section and the eastern section.
When do you think the rest will be coordinated, those final ones?
It's hard to say exactly when we'll do College Mall. We've done some changes, but we're observing them just to see how they turn out. I'd say maybe in like next month or 2.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
ongoing.
pretty
Okay.
close.
Finally, can you clarify a little bit more what rest and walk means? So in other words, does it mean that you don't see the blinking, don't walk aggressively telling you to stop? Or what does that mean?
So the rest and walk means that when the vehicles in your same direction have a green time, that the rest of the green time for the vehicles is shown for the pedestrian sign.
Okay. Why is this significant?
The benefits are that people know when they can cross the street, and same thing for people that are driving. They're also expecting pedestrians to be crossing. If the remainder of the time isn't shown on the pedestrian walk symbol, then a person driving may not expect a person to be walking.
So in other words, it has to do with the clock that
Yes.
says a number of seconds that you have left to cross?
Yeah, that's correct.
So have you gotten rid of that clock? Is that the idea?
No, the clock is just going to show the remainder of the time that the pedestrian has to cross the intersection.
But it won't be red, it'll be white like it's a walk sign.
It will show the countdown once there's only enough time for a person to cross the street. So if like the signal is, or if the cycle is 30 seconds and it takes a pedestrian 15 seconds to walk, once it goes down from 30 seconds to 15 seconds remaining, it'll go from the pedestrian symbol to the red hand, and then it'll count down from 15 all the way down to 0.
So before, what was the typical way
Before, it would
was
only
set up?
show the pedestrian symbol for possibly half the time. And so you might have the walk symbol only for 5 seconds, and then it would count down.
From
and then it would go
25.
to 0.
Yeah.
And then after the pedestrian symbol goes to 0, vehicles are still given a green, but the pedestrians don't have the green.
Got it. All right, now I understand. Thank you for explaining rest and walk to me.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Drummy?
I thought I understood rest and walk before you explained it, so, which is not a criticism of you. At one of these meetings, there was a discussion about the setting, changing, I think there was, about changing the signals so that there would always be a walk symbol, no matter whether anyone activated any buttons or not. Is that related to rest and walk?
It's another safety feature, but it's different than rest and walk. That one's called pedestrian recall. So without a person having to push the button, it'll always show that. It'll
Okay.
just assume that there's a person there to cross.
Okay.
Even if there
Seems
isn't
like they
one.
could have come up with a better name than pedestrian recall, but what do I know? Seems like maybe always walk or something.
Yeah, they're complicated.
And then, in terms of retiming the lights, sometimes when I drive to work, I drive down 3rd Street, headed west to my office is at 3rd and College, and sometimes I will get every red light available. Does that mean I'm doing something wrong, or is it, do the lights sometimes have to resync, or what would cause that?
It could be that you're driving either slower than
I'm
the
always
speed
driving
limit.
the speed limit,
Yeah. If
or
you're,
too slow, maybe.
if you're driving at the speed limit, it could just be that the number of vehicles that were expected to be at the intersection in front of you is higher or lower. And so we've just given that next intersection a green time either later or sooner. But those are things that we're also fine-tuning.
Is that all manual work, like somebody has to go stand at the box next to the intersection and make adjustments, or is that something you do digitally, remotely?
You can do it remotely.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Garzi. Traffic Calming and Greenways Program Request for Projects 2026. Who is presenting this item?
That would be me. Ryan
Oh,
Rowe.
over here.
Yes.
Ryan Roebling from Planning and Transportation. Hello.
Yes, hello. This is just an update that the 2026 Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program opened up. We're looking for neighborhood applicants from now until June 26th. You have to submit a letter of intent to David Brantes, who is the Alternative Transportation Coordinator in the Planning and Transportation Department. We sent a press release out on May 14th, and it's also available in your packet. Last year, you all approved the 11th Street traffic calming, neighborhood traffic calming. That was the highest ranked project. So we're excited to get to work on something this year. We'll have a public meeting after we have a project selected, and then it'll come to you all for review. And then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for the presentation. Any questions about traffic calming, about the traffic calming program? To my left? To my right? Is this a program that individuals do or that neighborhoods do? Like how Who should think about doing this?
An individual can start it. A neighborhood will, you do need your neighbors' signatures, a handful of them during your letter of intent, but we can help you with that. You can ask any questions to David Brantes or Hank Duncan, who's also familiar with the project. But we'll get you as far as we can, but you will need to talk to some of your neighbors.
And once again, the deadline for people to apply for this year's program is June 5th?
26th, June 26th.
So what is the letter of intent deadline, Friday, June 5th by 5 p.m. in this notice here? That's the pre-application meeting deadline, June 26th.
Yes, there's a pre-application meeting, which you can have with David, but you don't have to have that this year. Historically, you did. This year, we're going to try to do, we found those to be less useful. So if you would like to get an early meeting, you're welcome to do that still. But really, you would just need the letter of intent, and then we'll reach out to you.
Okay, well, again, as from the plain reading of this document, it says the deadline for letters of intent is Friday, June 5th. Is that?
I don't know,
right
it's
there.
June 26th, so I don't know, hold on.
That's the next deadline for the pre-application meeting. I'm glad I asked.
I will double check, but I am 90% sure the actual deadline is June 26th. I'll get that by the end of the meeting and update all of our numbers.
Okay, well, could we just, for the sake of people who are watching, say that practically speaking, June 26th is the deadline?
I am happy to say that June 26th is the deadline for
All
the
right.
letter of intent.
And we're going to have another meeting between now and then so we can reiterate it at the June meeting. Okay, any other questions? Mr.
I
Drummond?
do. I'm sorry. Questions, brief questions, I guess. But when I first moved to Bloomington as an adult in 2008, I remember someone said to me, Bloomington will we were talking about Covenanter, I think, and someone said, Bloomington will never install speed bumps again anywhere. And I haven't paid a lot of attention, but I think we've installed them in a few places since then. Is there any truth to, was there a time where what is our current position on speed bumps, and has that changed through the years? And and I'm asking in relation to this project, if somebody came, the reason I asked the question is because one of my neighbors, I mentioned this program to them, and they said, we need speed bumps. They don't live on my street, they live on a different street, but is that something that would be potentially a possibility with this project?
Not with this project on all streets. This specific program is on neighborhood residential streets, so that is lower speed, lower volumes streets. There are traffic calming methods that we can implement, but not through this program, including speed humps on different streets. But for this specific program, it is only neighborhood residential streets.
But don't we have speed bumps on neighborhood residential streets?
Yeah.
Like in Park Ridge or?
Yes, absolutely. So this program would work for that type of street.
And
then
speed bumps, is there something about this program that prohibits speed bumps?
Yeah, no, speed bumps. Speed
tables,
bumps we don't
humps.
generally do. Engineering could weigh in on why, I don't know the technical details, but speed humps and speed cushions and things like that, we can do.
Can?
Yeah, so on 11th Street, we installed some speed cushions.
Okay.
Just a
Thank you.
point of clarification, I believe I've highlighted the section that does specifically suggest speed cushions and speed humps as an appropriate proposal for this program.
Perhaps I should ask Mr. Drummond, before that answer, did you make a distinction between bumps, humps, and cushions? I feel like I'm in a pop song.
No, I wasn't. I did whatever the most modern version of it, what the rest of the world would call a speed bump, but I mean, hump, whatever the newest, the latest and greatest, which I'm all in favor of. Used to not as a younger person, but now as long as bikes can get around them without bumping, I'm good.
Perhaps someone could just briefly remind us of the definitions of these terms. Could somebody please do that?
So speed hump and speed bump, I think the average person thinks that they're the same thing, and that makes sense. Speed humps are the ones that are 12 feet across, 12 feet wide. Those are the pretty standard ones that we use. They don't have any cutouts. Speed bumps are the ones that you typically see in parking lots. and they're about 2 feet wide. And for those, you would have to drive over them at 5 miles per hour.
You mean deep as you're driving over it, it's 2
Yes.
feet this way, and then the speed humps are how?
About 2 feet.
The speed
It could be
humps,
1 foot wide.
they're 1 foot,
1 foot deep.
and the speed bump is 2 feet.
Is speed hump would be 12 feet, and a speed bump would be about 1 foot or 2 foot.
Oh, so in other words, they're much more abrupt, whereas speed
Yes.
humps are more gradual.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to
Okay.
put a speed bump in a street unless you wanted someone to come to a complete stop.
Okay, and a speed cushion?
And speed cushions are just like a speed hump, so they're 12 feet deep, but they have cutouts for transit, emergency vehicles, but just for larger vehicles. The cutouts aren't intended for passenger vehicles.
So in other words, a speed cushion would only happen on a bus route, whereas a speed hump can happen anywhere. Well, you wouldn't use a speed hump on arteries, arterial roads? Is that the idea?
Yeah, you would typically not traffic calm an arterial road because you wouldn't want to discourage people from using the arterial roads. You tend to put traffic calming on residential roads where people are using those as cut-through roads.
Okay. I hope that satisfies all our questions.
It does for now and confirms I'm just the average person. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions before we move on to the next item? Thanks again for the presentation. And again, reminder that anyone who wants to, a resident of Bloomington who would like to see a traffic calming project done has until June 26th to send a letter of intent. Let's go now to an update on Rogers Street from Grimes to 3rd Street, the project. Andrew Seaborn.
Thank you. Just an update on our Rogers Street project. If you recall, I think it was back in your March meeting. Kendall provided an overview of that project and particularly focused on related Title 15 change that reduced some on-street parking on Rogers Street and also committed to following up with the neighborhoods and having some additional feedback on the concept that was presented and you did vote on. So since that meeting, he did have a series of neighborhood meetings with the Prospect Hill neighborhood. He's also submitted mailings to the adjacent properties and reached out to council members and collected an amount of feedback, really focused on the area in the Prospect Hill neighborhood. Wanting to also note, though, that he has not yet been able to have a similar meeting with McDowell Gardens neighborhood, so that is still forthcoming. But specific to the section in Prospect Hill, essentially received a lot of feedback. I could share some of his notes from you, but what he heard overall from that feedback, and also in consultation with the planning department that has the ongoing corridor study, is essentially that what was presented and what you voted on is the direction we're going to continue to proceed with through Prospect Hill. So essentially that has a refuge island in Rogers Street for the Howe Street intersection, and then bump outs at the Smith intersection and Prospect intersection. So essentially we're maintaining what we presented and what you voted on in that segment. And we are expecting to continue to do that for the McDowell Gardens, where we had removed parking to do bike lanes, but we just want to still note we are still meeting with that neighborhood. That's still coming. So I could go into more details from what he shared with you, but just wanted to give you that update.
Thank you for the report. Any questions to my left on Rogers Street? To my right? My only question would be when do you think the project will be complete?
I think by the end of this construction season, it will be complete. This construction summer will be very busy, and work will be starting here soon. I think generally on the Grimes corridor, but this is a very large project that includes, it was bid out as one, it's Kirkwood, Rogers, Grimes, and Patterson. And so it's a big project, and so work will start soon and will be done this construction season.
I mean, I'm just asking because I'm anticipating this item on the agenda in the future, so I just want to know how much more to expect.
Sure. I think this item, I think the main thing we would come back to you is likely in after we meet with McDowell Gardens, in case just provide a findings from that, as we said we would. Because just the timing of this project, ideally we would have done that before we brought the project to you. But when we received funding that we weren't expecting in the timeline that we did, that's why we're in this.
Great, thank you so much. Let's go now to feedback on the ADA transition plan. Who is presenting this?
I believe I can present. This is a very short note on behalf of Michael Shermis, who came and presented a draft of the ADA transition plan. He just wanted to provide a reminder that the deadline for receiving feedback is May 22nd. That's coming up in a few days. And he just wanted to genuinely encourage everyone to participate, take a look at it. I've provided a hyperlink to the press release specific to this, and I would encourage people interested in providing feedback to utilize the press release as far as a best path for following up with the team. So, thank
And
you.
just to be clear, the ADA transition plan is a document the city's creating that identifies accessibility barriers in city facilities, programs, services, and activities, and outlines steps to address them. Is this the first such plan we've done?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so this is the latest draft, perhaps, or a
I
new version?
believe this is an update. If other staff want to chime in.
Andrew Seabour, city engineer. This is, I think the current basically plan has been every 2 years it's updated. So this is, it's been 2 years, but it's been on that cycle for a number of years. A prior version was in place for a while, but we've had one for quite some time.
And do we generally receive comments that might be appropriate for such a plan, even when we're not in the process of updating it?
I am probably not the best person to answer that. Michael Shermis would be, and I'd encourage you to reach out to him.
Okay, that'd be great. Any other questions on the ADA transition plan update? Again, we have till Friday, May 22nd, this Friday, to submit comments to this plan. To whom do they submit them?
Oh, to whom?
Yeah.
The
Where?
press release indicates that they should be, there is a feedback form cited in the press release. That's bton.in/26ADA
Oh,
is the
okay.
URL. And that's the best place to submit your feedback. Thank
That's
you.
great. Thank you very much. We now go to the cases section of the meeting, but we have no cases scheduled. So let's now go to discussion of topics not on the docket. First up is an update on the College Mall Covenanter Drive intersection evaluation. Who is presenting?
That'll be me. Hello.
Mr. Garzi.
John Garzi, traffic engineer. This item is a follow-up to a previous inquiry regarding pedestrian safety and left turn operations at College Mall Road and Covenanter Drive. We reviewed the intersection conditions, traffic volumes, crash history, and field conditions. This intersection includes a neighborhood greenway crossing on Covenanter, protected and permissive left turn operations on all approaches, bike lanes on College Mall Road, and fairly high traffic volumes. As part of the review, staff evaluated 30 reported crashes over approximately 5 years. A recurring pattern involved left-turning vehicles entering the path of opposing through traffic during permissive left-turn operations. Staff also reviewed a pedestrian-involved crash associated with the left-turn movement. Based on the review, we intend to move forward with several low-cost near-term improvements, including left-turn yield on green signage, adding signage for the existing eastbound no turn on red restriction, and refreshing faded pavement markings. Staff is also evaluating whether an LPI, or a leading pedestrian interval, may be appropriate at this location through the citywide signal retiming project, given the greenway crossing. Long-term, we identified potential safety benefits associated with eliminating permissive left turns and moving toward protected only left turn operations. However, the existing signal infrastructure cannot currently support that change without being upgraded. We are also evaluating potential lighting improvements at the intersection. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, thanks for the presentation. Are there questions on my right?
I've got a question.
Mr. Kopic.
So the leading pedestrian interval, is that all red in all directions except for the pedestrian crossing?
Could you repeat that, please?
Is the leading pedestrian interval, is it all red for all 4 legs of the intersection, only for pedestrians to cross in?
Yeah, so the pedestrians would get approximately like a 3-second head start, and while the pedestrians have the green time, the vehicles would have a red.
Okay. Mr. Drummy?
With my questions regarding this, the leading pedestrian interval as well, in your report, you said that you're still evaluating it. Generally speaking, wouldn't the leading pedestrian interval always be safer for the pedestrian?
It would be.
So what is there to evaluate, I guess is my question.
So I think maybe in February, we came to you all and presented a policy about citywide timing. And part of that was how we determined where and when to implement leading pedestrian intervals. And for that, we set a certain threshold, which is pretty low, based on pedestrian volumes. And the Covenanter College Mall area didn't meet that threshold, and so we didn't add any LPIs. But since it is a greenway, we are considering adding that, just based on the context.
Mr. Strasburg?
Is there an expected timeline to be able to make the capital investment for the upgraded signaling?
It's not clear exactly when we can make that investment. The main barrier to that is just prioritization. We could find the funding for this location, but there are other intersections throughout the city that are higher on the priority list on the Safe Streets for All plan. They've ranked different intersections from highest to high, and I think some of those other locations would be better for us to upgrade first.
I appreciate that. I'm familiar with that kind of prioritization, but I also know that sometimes if things are on the near-term list, then later could be 10 or 20 years. So is there a ballpark range?
Yeah, I don't have a ballpark range at this moment.
Thank you.
Let me go first. Mr. Garzi, so the reason that this is getting the attention it's getting is because it's not just a normal intersection, it has a greenway running through it. Is that the idea? That's why it's getting this extra attention?
The extra attention that it's getting is because there was a collision with a pedestrian crossing and a left-turning vehicle hitting them. And I believe last year it came to the commission and you had made an inquiry for us to look into this intersection and see how we can improve it. And so we're coming back just to show you our findings.
How quickly we forget. Sorry. I do have trouble tracking projects from meeting to meeting, but secondly, so just to get a clarification of what you said to Mr. Drummy, I didn't quite follow the thing about leading pedestrian intervals. Why aren't they just de rigueur? And why don't we, I didn't understand the answer to that question, I'm afraid.
So your question is, why don't we just do leading pedestrian intervals at all locations?
As a matter of course, yeah.
I don't think we really have a reason for not doing it. We just set certain guidelines for when we would do it, and we made the qualifications for that fairly low. We can always change that, and so like right now we're reconsidering applying the LPI at this location, so it's not that we couldn't. We just had a policy and said when an intersection meets this threshold, we'll do an LPI.
Okay, we'll go a second round of questions. Mr. Kopic.
Just for clarification, so who does the signal timing adjustments? Is that done by you guys or a consultant or?
Right now, the citywide retiming is done by a consultant, but we're able to make those changes ourselves as well.
And then how are the changes actually made? I mean, can you do them on, say, a laptop or something, take them out, download them to the intersection? Is that how it works these days?
Yeah, basically. We can go to the intersection, we can change the timing, and we can then upload it to the controller.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Strasburg.
Yeah, to clarify, the leading pedestrian intervals, you're balancing throughput of traffic because this does slow down the cars a little bit with pedestrian safety. So at some threshold, you have a lot of pedestrian volume. Clearly, it's helpful. And at some other threshold where it's a very low pedestrian volume, it makes more sense to maybe prioritize the throughput of cars. That's what you're balancing?
That's correct.
That's good, thanks. Mr. Drumming?
This question may be, it's a little bit off topic, but I've noticed at this intersection, and I'm looking the other direction, so heading eastbound, this happens to not be, there is no, as far as I know, that you can turn right on red there. Is there a reason, is there a reason this intersection does not prohibit a right on red?
I'm not aware why it doesn't prohibit it. It may just be that we don't have a sign at that location. But my understanding is that this intersection is coded to have no right on red.
Okay.
Okay. The last time I thought about this intersection, it was several years ago, and it was about the idea that it was a prime location for a greenway with a more elaborate infrastructure, perhaps even a protected bike lane at some point. Are those, what is the status of Covenanter as a, I mean, it's a greenway now, right? Is it going to be, are there plans to upgrade it infrastructure-wise to make it a more, Covenanter has some, even beyond this intersection, has some pretty wide lanes, and where are we going with that as a greenway? Does anybody know?
I'm going to defer to Andrew Siebel for this.
Sure. There was a time, you probably would recall, I couldn't tell you what year, but there was a bond package that City Council approved that basically had a list of capital projects that were prioritized in order. And on one of those bonds, a protected bike lane project on Covenanter was included. But I believe, I'm going by memory years back, I think that was maybe the lowest priority project of that bond project. And essentially, there was not sufficient funding to move that project forward, certainly to a construction stage. And since that time, additional plans have been adopted that kind of reframed how we prioritize project from a SS4A type perspective. So
now you've nailed it. That's what I want to know is, tell me how the plans have changed since that bond was proposed, and what can we look forward to, but SS4A related.
I think I'm just going by whim and what's in my head here.
In the dark here, yeah.
But I think, in short, we are now prioritizing corridors based on what is seen as highest or high priority, and I am just guessing that Covenanter in that stretch that a protected bike lane was identified on is not one of those higher priorities, and so has been deprioritized compared relative to other projects like 10th Street or something like that that has kind of been bumped up since that time.
Very good. Thank you for helping me rescue that memory. I appreciate it. Further questions on the intersection of College Mall and Covenanter? To my right, to my left. Mr. Seymour.
I know, I just wanted to note, we did put this item on discussion in case there was maybe comments from I think maybe members of the public that might be interested. So
We're getting to that. I just wanted to check with further questions before we go to the public. So again, this is a discussion of topics that are not otherwise on the docket as a case. If there is, but we would like to take public comment on it. If there's any member of the public who would like to comment on the intersection of College Mall and Covenanter, please come to the podium, state your name, you'll have 3 minutes. If you're online, please raise your hand in Zoom, and you'll be called in due order.
My name is Laura Gao. I live on Fair Oaks Lane. I'm a neighbor of that intersection. I was struck on December 17th, 2025, at that 24 at that intersection, and was wounded, and the man who ran into me with his pickup truck was not cited for a moving violation. And I came and I brought this in. I thought, what can I do to make this a better situation? I can take it to the Traffic Commission to improve the safety, and I can try to get the record straight with the police. Is there a representative of the police here today, or is a police person listening online?
I don't know. They were not explicitly invited, but I don't know.
I thank the Traffic Commission for looking into this and for making a plan for the future. I am very glad to hear that stationary signs saying to obey the left turn to cede the right-of-way is going in, and I hope a leading pedestrian interval will be installed at that intersection. The rest of what I have that I would say that probably doesn't pertain to what your work is regarding the police, because you have a safe street policy, and you can make the safest streets possible, make the best speed limits, put your infrastructure in place, but if the police don't enforce the law, that's my beef. And I have some things I could say to that, but I don't know that this is the best place if there's no police representation here.
It's not inappropriate. I would encourage you to continue.
All right, it's going to take me about 3 minutes to read it. The chief of police said, when we talked about this intersection in November of last year, do you think that giving that driver a ticket would make a better driver of him? And I would say that the answer is yes. You can, as I said, if you have all the work done by this group, but the police don't enforce the rules of the community, it's like playing a board game without rules, but with much graver consequences. As I was hit by an inattentive driver while crossing in the pedestrian crosswalk, and the inattentive driver was not cited with a moving violation, I thought, what next? Not giving tickets for running stoplights and hitting kids? And unfortunately, that has been put to the test. And a child was hit by somebody running a stop sign, and the driver was not cited. I would repeat to this commission that in explaining what happened to me as I was going around recuperating with my broken arm, every person who heard my tale was indignant that the police had not given the driver a moving violation. They were just incredulous. Further, after this testimony to the commission, I was talking to a group of 8 women who were older, and several of them had moved to Bloomington community recently. These women were also indignant, but they also said that in this community, as in no place they had ever lived before, running of red lights was done with no repercussions. You never saw traffic stops for egregious violations of running red lights. And the police chief asked, will giving the ticket make a better driver? And I would say, yes, there are repercussions for operating a vehicle inattentively, while distracted, inebriated, or high. This would say, yes, there are repercussions. It acts on more than just the driver. Since other drivers see the ticket being given in conversation with people that hear of the ticket, it will spread the word, tickets are given, there are repercussions for breaking the laws.
Let me pause you here because your time is up. Would anyone like to make a motion to allow her to continue? Mr. Stossberg,
I make a motion to let her finish her statement.
is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Please continue. You have 3 more minutes.
Thank you. And so people will take note if tickets are given. Further, there's a cost to the community in sending out an emergency response team. And if the ticket is given, it has the person who caused the problem have some cost, some skin in the game for the community having to send out the emergency response group. Furthermore, if you report with the citation what has happened, it makes crash analyses and the law enforcement and the insurers that have to deal with that driver in the future know what has happened. If litigation is needed, the police record reflecting reality is crucial as well. The police chief said we would not like it if this community was one in which the police gave out traffic tickets. I have lived in a community where tickets were given out liberally, almost predatorily, College Station, Texas. That community abided by the traffic law in an amazing way because they knew they would get tickets. The Transportation Committee is doing the best they can to get the place safe, but they can't enforce the law. The victims can't enforce the law. The police has to do that. The police are those who can give the tickets, who can enforce the laws of the community, and this includes not just for transportation with vehicles, but pedestrians and bicycles as well. And I would beg that the police do the job that is theirs to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Is there anyone online?
I have Hopi S online. They should be able to unmute.
Please state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Hopi Stossberg. I just wanted to bring up something that hasn't been mentioned as part of this intersection. If you are heading east through it on a bicycle, you can't trigger the traffic light to turn. And so I'm just hoping that while we're talking about this intersection and while engineering is focused on it, something is done about that. I have sat there on a bicycle before and gone through a couple of different cycles and then ultimately had to essentially run a red light as safely as possible in order to get through that intersection, because if a car is not coming, then I as a bicycle am just sitting there. So I hope that something else happens with regard to that at this intersection too. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further public comment in chamber or online?
I have Paul Rousseau, who should be able to unmute.
Please go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Hi, Paul Rousseau. I would like to strongly support the comment of the first public commenter. When she was struck by a car, I had a very similar experience. 2 years ago, June of 2024, as some of you may already know, I was struck by a car and thrown up over the hood and nearly killed. I was waiting at a stop sign at East 3rd Street and Heritage, and the driver made a fast left turn, so fast that she went into my side of the street, probably hit me at about 25 miles an hour and broke my leg in 4 places. It was a life-changing injury. What I'd like to address tonight is the fact that a year after the crash, I contacted the responding officer and I asked him, was the motor vehicle driver cited for a moving violation? And I asked about whether the driver had been tested for THC or alcohol. None of that was done. The driver wasn't even cited. Her windshield was spidered. My leg was out, split up into the road, and I'm lying and screaming my head off, and I'm on my side of the lane. And he said to me, for us to cite a vehicle, I'm reading now from his email he sent me, for us to cite a vehicle for any infraction would require us to see the infraction happen. I don't know what to say about that. That's insane. And I have not been able to ask the chief of police to verify that, but I suppose he probably would, especially after the comment by the first member of the public tonight. I detect, this particular officer who helped me was actually very friendly, but he was apparently telling me what the city policy was. It wasn't his decision, I guess. I detect overall, though, a real dismissiveness on the part of our police with respect to pedestrian and bicycle safety, and it's got to end. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from members of the public, either in the room or online? Going twice? All right, let's come back to second round questions from commissioners. Any second round questions, follow-ups? Mr. Stossberg.
Thank you all for your public testimony. I've also been hit by a car while riding my bike, and it's not something I care to repeat. I recall that after this case came before us last time, we passed 2 resolutions. One was about the physical facility of the intersection. The other one was directing the city to look into aligning our ticketing policies along with our Safe Streets for All plan. And I believe that's something we're still waiting to have come back to us. Do you share this recollection, Mr. Seabour? Mr. Roebling?
Yes, that is correct. That was the resolution, and we are still working towards that. That'll take a little bit more time than the engineering review.
So thankful, with that still in progress, we may have hopefully some positive, something to report in the future.
Just to be clear, you're saying that there's a resolution in development, not one that we've adopted?
We passed a motion to direct the city to align ticketing policies with our Safe Streets for All goals.
Okay, so that's in the works, but it's not come before us yet.
Correct.
Okay. Further questions? Mr. Drummy?
This may be a question for ourselves, but while we're on the topic of this intersection, one of the public commenters mentioned, and I'm familiar with the same, oftentimes I'll get on my bike and hop over the curb and go push the pedestrian button to make the light trigger, which is not everybody can do or thinks to do, but also the no turn on red issue. Is that something we can ask that those two things be looked into further, or do we need to present a new case at a different meeting or today or whatever?
Well, that brings me to the thing I was going to say to introduce the discussion portion of this topic, which is, frankly, I consider this portion of our meeting to be perhaps one of the greatest process innovations that I've seen in my time involved with the city. We are free, thanks to this structure, to discuss anything we've heard today. We are not voting on an item that has been set out for us with language that we're recommending be adopted as city code or as a new plan or what have you. We have the option to make one or more motions to direct staff to tee up a resolution, to tee up even an inquiry, and that this portion gives us the freedom to go afield from the point of the main topic, which was this intersection, to talk about the more general point of what's the point of fixing it if there's no law enforcement at this intersection or other places. So no commissioner has to make a proposal, let alone right now. This is all fodder for thought. But if a commissioner was so moved to say, I think that we should direct staff to drop a resolution, direct staff to put an inquiry on the agenda, that would be an appropriate motion to make. So with that, I just want to open the floor for, everyone has come here to see what we think of this issue. So have at it, please. What do y'all think? Think out loud. Mr. Strasburg.
Ms. Gal mentioned this is not a one-off incident. Mr. Russo, it happened again at Smith and Morningside. We have not just isolated incidents, but a pattern of vulnerable road users being struck by motorists when it was clearly their fault. There's evidence to support it, and they are not being cited. Now, I can understand if there's some level at which we can't write tickets for absolutely everything, but this was the impotence for passing the motion last time. I believe we can draw a line where you can say when there's sufficient evidence, when the people are vulnerable road users, when someone's clearly at fault, it does feel like we ought to be able to cite people. And I hope this something will come out of the motion that we've passed to have this looked into further.
If I may ask, do we know if this is a matter of state law or local law? In other words, is it local law that prevents a BPD officer from writing a ticket, or does state law hold? Maybe there's a staff member who can answer that question.
Going by memory from when we had police present at this meeting, I don't know if it's a law that is in place. It's more of a practice or policy of the department.
Okay. So then it is something within our control as a city.
I believe it's driven partly by resource constraints. As someone who does crash analysis, we have like 10 or so a day that involve often single or multiple vehicles.
Right, but this was a case or whether we heard a case of a member of the public who said, I was hit by a car, I'm lying there in pain, and the officer says, I can't do this without, without having seen it myself. Can we not change a policy like that?
Right. So again, having to do crash analysis, if you narrow it down to just the bicycle and pedestrian crashes, it is a much smaller set. So I think perhaps look at only, I feel like we have resources to do something as opposed to what we're doing now, which is hardly anything.
Mr. Drummey?
My observation, like I've shared before, it's not just Bloomington specific. I don't see many police officers issuing citations for crashes. Hardly. It's a rare exception to the rule. The police chief, my memory is he said, "Look, this is for the lawyers to deal with," and I appreciate his trust in my profession, but I don't have citations in my toolbox. That's not what I can help do. So I don't think there's a I mean, I assume it violates the transportation or traffic code to run into somebody with your car. Just no different than if he comes upon the scene and it turns out the vehicle driver was intoxicated. He didn't see the driver driving the vehicle intoxicated, so they still arrest people on those grounds. So I think it may go to the level of probable cause, but I think it's more of an issue. My impression is the police chief says, "Hey, we have limited," and I'm trying to paraphrase what he said, "We have limited resources, and this is not a resource we're focused on." And just like if they want to focus on speeding, or issuing speeding tickets or not, I mean, I didn't understand there to be a policy that we're not going to issue tickets. It's more just the practice of the department. We're not going to issue tickets. But as I said, in fairness, this is not a Bloomington specific thing. I have a statewide personal injury practice, and I can count on one hand the number of citations I've seen, except for drinking and driving. There's often arrest made, but otherwise, using phones, people they don't. Even if the person admits they were looking at their phone, there's no citation issued. Following too closely, speeding, those types of things. There's just hardly, if there's a crash, normally there is no citation issued. A police report is always done, but no citation issued.
So basically, this is more of a state issue than a local one, in that this is not uncommon practice among police departments.
I don't know about the first part of your question, but my experience is it's not uncommon. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't change, and I think we're actively trying to address it currently with the pending inquiry. And so maybe the right call is to wait till we get those results back. I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, I think you have. Mr. Stossberg.
So we are addressing this, I think, in the best possible way in terms of using design to prevent injuries. And as we do that, the number of these incidents will go down because the physical road designs will be safer. And as that number goes down, it does seem like it becomes more practical to cite the remaining cases. And that's the hope, the place I hope we can get to, with safer street designs and then citations for a smaller remaining cases.
Anyone, observations on my right? Are there any, as far as this particular design, we came to this topic because of College Mall and Covenanter. Are there any observations or comments or motions that people would like to make about it? Does it need further attention? Mr. Drumming.
I'll make a motion, I guess, for an inquiry into the no turn on red signage, and if there's reason that doesn't exist, and also included in that motion an inquiry into whether the signal activation related to cyclists can be improved moving forward.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote on Mr. Drumming's motion. Mr. Garzi, can you give us a roll call vote? Just so those who are present, please.
Kopic?
Yes.
Mr. Midas?
Yes.
Vollen?
Yes.
Drummy?
Yes.
Strasburg?
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Any other motions on College Mall and Covenanter? Seeing none, I'll just say, I still feel like the intersection as a whole, I mean, while I was appreciated Mr. Seabor's extracting of that memory that we had talked about this intersection before, like I'm thinking about the rain example we talked earlier and the example of when snow falls, that intersection has always been pretty thick, shall we say, like with space for cars to go nice and fast. And I think that also contributes to it. I'm a little disappointed to hear that I mean, I guess it's safe enough because it's not one of our highest priority intersections. But I did have the thought that Covenanter could have been made safer, a full greenway with protected lanes, but I can wait. On the other hand, I'm not sure. I hope that no one else will be unhappy that we waited. With that, let's conclude this item and go now to the second intersection evaluation update of the day, the corner of Smith and Morningside. Who is presenting this update?
That will also be me.
All right,
Hello again.
Mr. Garzi, please go ahead.
Okay, so this item is a follow-up to an inquiry regarding stop sign compliance, pedestrian visibility, and neighborhood greenway crossings safety at Smith Road and Morningside Drive. We reviewed traffic volumes, crash history, field conditions, and community concerns. The intersection currently operates as an all-way stop-controlled intersection, with Smith Road functioning as the higher volume roadway compared to Morningside Drive. During field review, staff observed rolling stop behavior and reduced compliance on Smith Road approaches. We believe this may be partially related to driver expectation issues associated with the relatively low cross-street traffic volumes on Morningside. We reviewed 3 reported crashes over the last 5 years, including a bicycle-related injury crash within the crossing area. Based on the evaluation, we intend to move forward with several operational improvements intended to reinforce the stop condition and improve visibility at the crossing. Proposed improvements include supplemental left side stop signs on Smith Road approaches, replacement of the damaged southbound stop sign, and upgrading the existing crosswalk markings to high visibility continental crosswalks. At this time, we believe these are appropriate near-term improvements that can be implemented relatively quickly while continuing to monitor operations and safety conditions at this intersection. I'll take questions at this time.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there questions on this update? To my left. To my right. Seeing none, are there members of the public who'd like to comment on this report? Please come to the podium, state your name. You'll have 3 minutes. Patrick Martin, are you a member of the public?
Yes.
All right.
My name is Patrick Martin. I live at 4471 East 3rd Street, Summer House. This is just around the corner from me. Smith and Morningside is. I go through this intersection as a pedestrian or as a bicyclist or as a runner 2 to 3 times a day. I don't drive through this intersection. I fully support the staff recommendation on the supplemental stop sign installations. And yes, they do roll through there on Smith. And also on the continental style crosswalk markings. One thing I also want to note here too is that Morningside is a BT route. And the buses go through there slowed down by the speed cushions. There are no cushions on Smith. There is on Morningside, and that's why it's calm. And then also the park, which is right there in the corner too, that northeast corner. A lot of children crossing in this area quite frequently. Most of them are accompanied by parents, but every once in a while they're not. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I only asked because Mr. Martin is a member of city staff, and I thought maybe he was here for a different reason. Any other members of the public who'd like to speak to this issue, please raise your hand in Zoom. You'll be called if you are online. Or you could just thunder your request.
I have a Daryl on Zoom who should be able to unmute.
All right, please state your name. You'll have 3 minutes to comment. Please go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I was having technical difficulties with the buttons. My name is Daryl Boggess, B-O-G-G-E-S-S. I was at the previous meeting. I decided to avoid the risk of rain tonight. So I have spoken with staff previously about the range of options. I appreciate what they are attempting to accomplish. However, I take exception with the extent of their reaction to the perceived urgency of the circumstance. It appears they have chosen the lowest cost, easiest to implement response, which may or may not be effective. I hope and wish it will be effective. In reality, as a decades-long resident of Park Ridge East, I live 3 doors away from that intersection. I have seen and heard way too many incidents. And at the last meeting in council chambers, I was impressed, some of you may recall, my new neighbor at the corner of that intersection, right where the accident took place, has a security camera at his garage that was recording it at the time it happened. And during the meeting, he turned on his camera on his cell phone and he counted something like 12 people that just rolled right on through, like there's no stop sign, anything there. So my concern is, which I voiced previously in writing, I think the real problem is the behavior of the drivers. It's a cut through from 10th to 3rd. These are neighbors, these are commuters, these are people who go through that intersection almost every day. They have grown accustomed to the California roll-through technique. They maybe slow down. I've seen several people who did not even hesitate. They just blew right through. But it's become a matter of custom and personal habit. And I don't think having a stop sign on the left side of the intersection is going to be adequate to change behavior. I think they need some kind of a rumble strip, a physical reminder to slow down. So I hope we will come back and discuss this again later if it's not effective. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other public comments on this item, this item, the corner of Morningside and Smith?
I have a Steve Akers who should be able to unmute.
Please go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Okay, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Steve Akers. I'm a resident of Park Ridge and thrilled with our greenway. But at the same time, we want to make our greenway safe from Park Ridge to Park Ridge East and back and forth because we have a lot of kids and adults that pass through that intersection. So 2 items I'd like to bring up. One would be, will you be developing some metrics after the enhancements that you proposed to put in, the additional stop signs and the crosswalk enhancements? Will you develop some metrics so that we can tell what will be, if the changes that you're going to implement are effective or not, if that's possible? And then secondly, what will be the timeline for implementation of the enhancements that you've mentioned? And thank you very much.
Thank you. Further public comment? If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand. You'll be called. If you're in the room, please come to the podium. Second call for public comments. All right, coming back to, thank you for the public comment. Let's come back now to,
Wait, I'm so sorry. There was a late one. It was
all right.
just as
Not too late.
That was my fault.
let's hear him. Please state your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Brianna Alexander, and I was also at the last meeting. I am the mother of the little girl who was hit riding her bike at that intersection. And I just wanted to echo the responses from the 2 other people who spoke and get some clarity around, is it the responsibility of interested parties to bring this topic up after the changes are implemented and we're not seeing change in behavior of the drivers?
Does that complete your comment?
Yes.
Thank you for your comment. Further public comment? Last call for public comment. Okay, let's come back for second round questions on the question of Smith and Morningside, the intersection evaluation update. Anybody on my left? Any questions? We'll get to comments in a minute, just if there's any last minute questions here, because I have a few. Mr. Kopic?
Andrew, will you guys be monitoring these improvements once they're done? Oh.
Yes, we will. We'll do a before study and an after study. And to answer the question about the metrics, we'll just measure stop sign compliance and just see how many people are stopping and not stopping beforehand, and then the same thing afterwards.
I'd like to follow up on that. Can you be more specific about how that works? How do you measure people stopping? Do you actually sit there and count?
That's correct. We would have staff go out into the field and observe both the northbound and southbound direction. Since eastbound and westbound is not the issue, we'll just ignore that and just focus on Smith. And we'll just observe people as they get to the intersection. If they actually come to a stop, we'll mark that. If they roll through without stopping, we'll mark that. And we'll compare the total counts.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Stossberg.
I'll phrase this as a question. Our neighborhood greenway program does a great job with delivering a certain level of service for the roads. We use a range of traffic calming metrics. We choose streets that are low volume. If you're on this network, you have a good guarantee that you're going to have a fairly safe route. Intersections produce a particular challenge because of their nature. Do we have a particular way that we try to guarantee a level of service as greenways pass through intersections as we do for the rest of the facilities? And if not, given a pattern of crashes where greenways, which we're trying to advertise as a safe network, pass through intersections, should we have some kind of level of service that we try to guarantee for these greenways in intersections?
That's a good question. Can any staff member address it?
So your question is, how do we guarantee that there's a certain level of service for people on the corridor?
I know that we can't necessarily, but there's a kind of a disconnect. The rest of the facilities are traffic calmed. I ride a lot of them, and they're just consistently a safe, comfortable environment. And it's a kind of a promise that we're making to the users of the network. This is a safe route. The intersections are also a part of the network. How can we provide that same kind of promise or level of service as these routes traverse intersections?
It's a great question. It's a hard one to answer. I think as I'm just was reflecting as you restated the question, I think I mean this really sincerely, but I might want to rethink it a little bit more. But I don't think we can make intersections as safe as we can make roadway segments. Like, just by their nature, that is where conflicts happen. So by default, they will not be as comfortable as the spots between them, particularly where we get to the more major intersections, like the 2 that we've been talking about tonight. So I think there is just a matter of they can't get to that same level, but we want to still do all that we can I am also just reflecting on when we do these projects, they're usually from major intersection to major intersection, and making sure we are intentional about looking at those endpoints as much as we are the in-middle intersections. Every intersection is unique. Every corridor has some unique features. We apply a lot of the same tools, but they can look and feel different at different places. And by nature, all-way stops are different than signals, than two-way stops versus other things. So it's just that's my honest. I don't know if I'm fully answering your question, but that was just the initial reactions I was having.
I understand it's a hard problem. I noticed this on the Hawthorne Greenway. I was heading north, and it was like crossing neighborhood street, neighborhood street, neighborhood street. Suddenly I got to Atwater, and it was a much more dangerous intersection, but as I approached it, it felt the same. So maybe there's some things we can do to alert the cyclists or the road users, hey, you're coming to a higher risk intersection, whether it's some colors or something, so that in addition, whatever we do for the road users to slow down, I think as cyclists we learn ourselves and to teach our children to be defensive, because the drivers aren't always going to stop, and we have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and that's a great example of, we did a neighborhood greenway that really ended in many ways at a major corridor, and the context there is very, very different. That was one of the critiques of it too, is that we didn't do more at that time for crossing Atwater, but it does make it more obvious what that is. Whereas if we're looking at like an always stop, or it's sometimes you've heard probably in the past people being hesitant to mark crosswalks and only marking a crosswalk because that maybe implies a level of protection that certain corridors you would want to do more than just do a crosswalk to make it a good crosswalk. And so in some cases like this is an always stop, so it may feel comfortable and safe, but is it? And those that have been talking know that it does have its challenges, but from a more psychological perspective, it has, I think what you're saying.
One more. An easier question. In our long-term transportation plan, we have grid connectivity. And as I understand, traffic works somewhat like fluid dynamics. The traffic spreads out to use all the available routes. People want to take the fastest route. This particular part of town, we have an ongoing interruption, which is the railroad track. We don't have connectivity between Park Ridge East and Meadow Park. Meadow Park is a private road network. It's not connected with the Eastern Heights across there. Is it the case if we could improve our grid connectivity that some of this traffic would then fan out and then there just would simply be less traffic at this intersection?
I think the theory, yes. I think the more that we can have a robust network, the more we distribute traffic, and the more we can avoid having an intersection where one road has 8 times the traffic of the other road, to have those more balanced traffic flows. We also being mindful of, not wanting to encourage more traffic on some residential streets at the same time, but generally, yes, the theory is the more connectivity, the better. And then we can have those, it does make things easier.
Yeah, but those are not easy fixes. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions to my right? I wanted to ask about this solution. This is sort of a minimal, or like is it, I don't know how to phrase it. I look at this intersection and I see another fat intersection. This is lots of room for cars to go quickly. I've seen streets necked down for pedestrians in more central parts of town. And I recognize that installing curbs and bump outs and the like are expensive. Does staff see that as a second step if this solution isn't adequate? Can you talk about that a little?
Yes, that would be correct. This is like our phase 1, just to see what can we do to encourage people to stop at the intersection, and then if people continue to not stop at the intersection, what else can we do? So it's like an incremental approach.
Okay, and so you're going to take counts to try to see if the problem, you can measure whether the problem is being alleviated by the solution. But you're not afraid to do more, you wanted to start with this.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Last question would be, what would be, let's say that the problem is not alleviated. What would be the next level of service that you would seek?
A big challenge that we have at this location is that it's an always stop. And in order for us to apply some other treatments that we have on other greenways, like adding speed humps in advance of it or rapid flashing beacons, we wouldn't be able to have it be an always stop because we don't use those measures at always stop locations. And so if people continue to not stop at this location, we would most likely recommend that we would remove the stop sign. It sounds counterintuitive, but by removing the stop sign on Smith Road, it would allow us to implement other measures, like traffic calming on the block or the rapid flashing beacons. And that would be similar to what we've done on other greenways.
In other words, you're suggesting that if you can't beat them, join them, let them roll through the intersection, but only if we force them to go at a steady, slow rate of speed in that area. Is that, Mr. Seabour? I see a...
Yeah, I think that's right, and I agree with everything that Mr. Garzi just noted, and I was just having reflections to past debates about other intersections in the community, and remembering a question that somebody asked, it might have been at a city council meeting, but like, if we were starting from scratch, what would you do?
Yeah.
And so I think what was described just to you is certainly a very realistic option. There are other options that have there's no great thing, but like from scratch, like this is a very big intersection. If we were designing a neighborhood intersection, we probably wouldn't have a median in the center of it. We would have the roads be narrower. We'd have bike lanes of appropriate width, or if there weren't bike lanes, we'd be doing bump outs. It would just be, but that becomes a much bigger project, and then it becomes back to the word prioritization on how much to invest. We have taken always stops in the community that were big, and as we've done resurfacing projects and things, or not even always stops, but tried to gradually remove excess width. We've brought some of them to you, and we've done some before this commission. So those would be other things that could be explored. So there's a menu of options, but I think what was shared is also a very, very real option that we'd be looking at.
No, it's well answered, and I appreciate it. I guess my last question would be when should we check back? In other words, how long will it take to implement this solution and then to evaluate it?
I think a realistic timeline would be a month or two. Just for us to do
that quickly?
Yeah, because we would just need to do a study beforehand. It would just mostly depend on staff time and availability to go out. Then for us to coordinate with our shops to install the signs, and then for us to do the post-study.
Would it be safe to ask for an update again in August? 3 months from now?
I think that would be fair. I think for us to do the before and after study during the summer break would be an ideal time frame, just because we don't have fluctuations with students coming back or the school year starting again.
I mean, you don't think that the relative lower traffic counts would wouldn't higher traffic counts show you a different set of data?
It would show a different set of data, but if we at least have the before and after with that same level of volume, they would be comparable.
Okay, all right. Well, so at the very least, I hope that we'll get an update in August. But now we come to the discussion of the case among members. If these questions haven't satisfied your interest, what do we all think of this? And what, if any, motions might we like to make to call for further action? Mr. Drummy?
I appreciate the work the staff has done. I find this problem to be depressing because it seems like, as long as we're still if we're going to use our phones when we drive and not figure out that problem, then we can put up 50 stop signs at this intersection, but if you don't see them and you don't stop, and then people get hurt. So it's, but I understand the reasoning, and then it's very interesting the statement about taking out the stop signs and how that could make it safer, but that it makes sense why that would be the case, so that's my only comment.
Mr. Strasburg.
I also appreciate the fast action here. I am a neighbor to this intersection. I have a daughter named Lena as well, and we've biked through that intersection. I also appreciate the big picture that the staff is doing. They have objective system-wide priority, and they are working through those in a systematic way that includes cost, number of crashes, high volume, and all these metrics that make sense. And so I realize this intersection is hard to fix in a better way, and I think we will eventually get to a bigger, longer-term fix as time and budget allow. So, thank you.
Thank you. Comments to my right? All right. Yeah, I don't think any further action needs to happen. I think that with the exception of stop signs on Smith, whatever they might put in is worth putting in anyway. And that if further remedies needed to come forward, I mean, it's still going to be helpful to have zebra stripes, for pedestrians there. I find myself sometimes doing 1,000-yard stare as well, just like, oh, that's probably, we're getting a slow exposure to the world of what engineers, cope with and are trying to solve, and it's non-trivial. I think it's fantastic that we can hope to get feedback on the implementation so quickly. I think that 3 months is a very reasonable amount of time. I'm a little surprised that it could happen that quickly. I guess because the changes are light. But I will not be surprised at all if we come back for more. Again, if the Smith is 8 times the traffic of Morningside, and the intersection is as vast as it is, that it encourages right turn on red and the like. I mean, just looking at that crosswalk, the north-south crosswalks are extremely long. I'm so used to seeing bump outs downtown where we've sort of rescued the intersection from the right turning car that it's almost a shock to realize how this is how we used to build our intersections. So I don't have anything more to add. I also just want to say that the comments that people made on this intersection really moved us to ask questions in a way that we didn't know how to ask, and I was grateful for all the public comment that came in. And I ask them all to please keep it up. Any other comments before we move on? Mr. Roebling.
Sorry, normally I wouldn't jump in here, but just wanted to update we have about 15 listeners in, there will be no August meeting, so the earliest meeting is September 28th. So I just didn't
I
want
suspected
people
that, in the back of my head, I was thinking, I wonder if there's an August meeting. So you've got an extra month, engineering. Let's look forward to seeing a report on an update on this at the September meeting. Thanks for the catch, Mr. Roebling. All right, if there's no other comment on that, we'll go to the third item on the agenda, if I can find it here. This is one I put up, and again, I want to apologize to Mr. Seabour for the way I put this on the agenda, because I did not follow procedure. It should have been submitted by May the 4th, and I did not submit it till May the 8th. Nevertheless, because it's only an item for discussion, and we've already seen the benefit of this portion of our period, I thought it was still appropriate to ask to have on the agenda. But I just want to point out that staff has not submitted a memo on this. In fact, we're going to get a presentation now. It's an ordinance proposal from Councilmember Kate Rosenbarger, who's here in the room. And I'd like to ask her to come now and make her presentation. This is on an amendment she's proposing to Title 15 on carless streets. Ms. Rosenbarger, thank you for being here and welcome. And I guess her slides, here we go.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kate Rosenbarger, City Council District 2. Today, sorry these slides were also very late, everyone, but thank you to city staff for getting them in this packet or out to everyone. So my colleague, Council Member Courtney Daly, and I are working on an ordinance that amends Title 15, Vehicles and Traffic, and it would create a chapter in that section of code for streets and alleys that are closed to vehicular travel. So the ordinance is a draft. I just want to give a little process first. It's coming before council on Wednesday, this Wednesday, May 20th. If it gets introduced, that will be first reading, where the plan is to have a conversation with council members and staff and department heads about the potential closure and amendments. So the next slide here is a little roadmap for the discussion today. We'll start with where are we now, and so we'll talk about the process to date and the ordinance that is currently in existence, Ordinance 2502, it was establishing the outdoor dining program, and in it amends Title 15 and other titles that create a car-free Kirkwood on specific blocks for specific months of the year. And then the second part today, we can talk about what are we fixing. So this is adding language to Title 15, again, to create that chapter for vehicle-free streets and alleys. And the other part of this is really further clarifying the intent of City Council when we passed the Ordinance 2502 to have certain blocks of Kirkwood Avenue car-free except in emergencies. So I do too just want to say this is very much, of course, this is on the discussion section of your all's agenda, and this very much is a discussion, as it will be on Wednesday. I mostly have my laptop here to take questions and comments from you all. So again, just very much appreciated. So a little bit of the where are we now in 2025. So Ordinance 2502 established the outdoor dining program, and these are some of the whereas clauses for the purpose of this program and to sort of also go through the history of the program. So the city, I can read these, I guess, if that is helpful. A lot of thumbs up from the commissioners, great, okay. Nobody moved. Whereas the city also temporarily closed portions of Kirkwood Avenue to make it available for enhanced social dining and outdoor seating, and whereas due to the success of the program, the Common Council expanded and extended the outdoor dining program in Ordinance 2201, Resolution 2304, and Resolution 2405. That was streeteries only that year because we had a lot of construction and sewer work, I think, on Kirkwood. And whereas the program continues to add vibrancy to our downtown and add health and use of our downtown business community. And whereas the Common Council is committed to activating Kirkwood Avenue as a premier destination for commerce, pedestrians, civic engagement, and community life, fostering economic vitality and social interaction. And whereas the Common Council seeks to provide long-term certainty to businesses, residents, and visitors regarding parklets and the Kirkwood conversion, allowing them to plan, adapt, and invest with confidence. And whereas the city desires to continue the outdoor dining program in the downtown. And I left that strike through 2028 because the original ordinance 2502, that was sponsored by myself and Council Member Asari. And we had talked about reevaluating this program at the end of 2028, which we were also doing with the parklets. But it was Council Member Asari, I think, led this, that it would create more predictability and stability for businesses to plan with confidence, as well as residents in their planning, if we did not have an end date to reevaluate, but instead just created an indefinite program and conversion for every year. So then a little to show where are we now, very similar place, I would say. This ordinance 2612, some whereas clauses that we took from the previous, and 2502, and some we changed around a little bit. Do you thumbs up want me to read these? Great, good enthusiasm. Whereas the Common Council in Resolution 2505, that should say 02, signaled a commitment to a predictable seasonal schedule and still seeks to provide long-term certainty. Whereas the City Council is committed to activating Kirkwood as a premier destination, these are copies. And whereas by formalizing this closure within Title 15, the city establishes a transparent framework for governance, allowing the city engineer, that's a typo, to manage emergencies while maintaining a consistent and predictable standard for the public. So this is diving a little deeper into the changes that I want you all to be aware of and that I hope we discuss here and at council. 2502, the city engineer, in cases of emergency, lack of preparation, or any other reason that may render the program impractical, can permanently or temporarily suspend the program in part or in whole. And what we would like to change in 2612 would take out that part about lack of participation or any other reason and say in cases of emergency, the city engineer may temporarily restore motor vehicle traffic as authorized. And this would be in the form of city engineer proposing orders like 90-day orders or 180-day orders that we see in places like the 7 Line and elsewhere. The process and discussion so far is, so in February 2026, there was a memo that was in front of council, and it was when we learned that the outdoor dining portion of the ESD program would not be continued based on lack of participation and impracticality, citing the budget, and this came from the city engineer. In March, I worked on just a very simple initial draft of this ordinance and shopped it around to a few folks. On April 10th, I sent that draft via email to city directors, so director of planning, director of engineering, ESD, and the deputy mayor. I also sent to all 8 of my council members, and in each email I asked for feedback, welcoming phone calls, texts, emails, getting together, collaboration, questions, everything there. That is where Councilmember Daley came on board. April 28th, Director Cooper Smith did respond to my email, and we got together and discussed it. And as of today, Councilmember Daley has met via phone with the mayor. Director Cooper Smith and Director Seabour, I think, happened to be together, and they all chatted about it, which was wonderful. And she has an email from Director Hiddle, and she has a meeting scheduled for tomorrow with the Director of Public Works. So our current timeline is now starting today. Here we are. This will be, again, up for discussion if it is voted for introduction, May 20th City Council meeting. And then Council has 2 more meetings before we go on recess. We have June 3rd and we have June 10th. So ideally, we would love to have something finalized and working with you all and potentially supported to bring back to council at either that June 3rd meeting or that June 10th meeting, which I understand would add a special session from you all, and I would like to talk about that. So far, the information needed that I know of is from one email from Director Seabour that we need a comprehensive list of streets closed to vehicles because others exist, and we would like them all to be in this proposed new chapter of Title 15. Thank you.
Sorry, thanks for the presentation. Before we go to council questions, and fully aware that staff has not been able to weigh in with a memo on this, I wanted to give staff an opportunity to comment. And I suspect that maybe the person to ask would be Director Coopersmith, who's here in the audience, unless Mr. Seaboard wanted to present first, because I think this is an issue not of safety, but of commerce. So whoever would like to speak, though, is welcome.
Sure. Director Jane Coopersmith of Economic and Sustainable Development. Thanks, Councilmember Rosenberger, for the presentation. I don't really have a lot to add. I think that, we staff did what we believed was a deep dive and due diligence to present information and evaluate this program earlier this year, and that was how we came to our staff recommendation in February. And I would just footnote that it wasn't, Andrew and I didn't decide, like it was the majority of cabinet members and departments working on this together. And we really believed that was the best recommendation for this space for a number of reasons. But I think that what council has expressed is that they desire a different outcome. And so I think they have access to the information that we provided at that time, and we are happy to provide anything else that's needed. I've been deeply appreciative of the outreach. I think the initial version that Councilmember Rosenberger shared didn't really have a lot of matter to it, and so there wasn't a lot to respond to, but I did find our meeting on the 28th to be super substantive and helpful. So I think just, it's been really informative. I think we should have been doing some design thinking together earlier on in this process. I learned through these conversations that Councilmember Daley had requested a deliberation session earlier this year. And I wish that we had said heck yes to that, because I think that's what this project truly needed. And so, I've said, hey, maybe we should do a deliberation session, but I don't think there's a huge appetite for that at this time. And then my main concerns are just about what we have a program that we're rolling out full steam ahead, and we think it's really great, but kind of just triaging what the council's expectations are for the remainder of the year and how we're working with businesses and maintenance of traffic plans with construction projects in the area. So I'm concerned about 2026. I'll just leave it there. But again, thanks for the communication. There's some media coverage that has said this is, contentious and we're battling, but we're communicating, and it's been pretty good. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seaboard, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just appreciating the dialogue. I don't have a formal presentation, mostly here just to help answer questions. The main things I maybe wanted to share, reflecting on when Director Coopersmith and I had a conversation with Councilmember Daley, appreciating the note that some of the feedback is potentially desired to include in it. One of the main questions in my mind, just to put it out there, is, a part of this, it's a legal discussion too, on like what is most appropriate from a legal lens and what is in Title 15 or not. And so we just, between various schedules, haven't been able to connect and didn't have a sense of the urgency of the timeline until more recently on this topic. But the independent of the Title 15 discussion is that just throughout time, Title 15 and traffic code has never been the tool used to temporarily close streets. And so that's maybe the biggest question in my mind, which is a different question. It's related but different. Like we are closing Clubhouse Drive temporarily. We construct projects and close them temporarily. We have some roads that have been closed for seasons or for experiments, or some permanently that we just have been successful without doing a traffic code. And just in a very early, quick assessment and email dialogue, in state code, when it talks about traffic regulations, it basically says what municipalities what our traffic regulations we can regulate. And there are things like stop signs and speed limits and one-way streets, but closing a street isn't a traffic it's not one of the options. It's just thought of, I think, differently. And so just from that lens, having some uncertainty with this specific, just the legality of the ordinance that's proposed. But happy to answer any questions.
Thanks to you both for your comments. So let me just frame this here. Again, this is the discussion portion of the meeting. There's no official action we're taking except to ask the commission staff to tee up a formal proposal, such as we would need to schedule a special session to hear, to make a formal proposal, to hear a formal proposal before it goes to City Council with the schedule that this legislation is on. Either that, or maybe the ordinance doesn't. We don't know what the council is going to do with the ordinance, whether they might decide it that quickly or postpone it. But it's on a track that's faster than our next meeting. So with that, I just want to say, open up the floor to questions on this topic. Do commissioners have any thoughts on the ordinance that is being proposed? Mr. Stossberg?
Yes, thank you. At one time, I owned a building on Main Street in Richmond, Indiana, which for a period was a pedestrian mall and a period cars went through. But I'm very sensitive to the fact this is more than just a transportation question. This is a question about, for the residents and vitality of the area. I hear the point that consistency is good. It makes planning good. I hear that. There's also a disconnect in what was presented about, sounds like first there was a recommendation to close due to lack of participation, and then impracticalities due to budget. But then following that, this is where there's some details missing, is a proposal to make it permanent after there was just some data that suggested it wasn't working. So how did, and this might be a question more for the council than just the Transportation Commission, but how did we get from let's close it to let's make it permanent?
Thank you. First, I would like to clarify, the permanent would just be a permanent seasonal closure.
Sure, I understand.
Okay, yes. So it's still the April through November. So we in February were given a memo from ESD with data in it, and I guess some points gleaned from a lot of meetings and outreach that they did, I think especially with council members. And I guess I would say there is a lot of data too that wasn't in it. It wasn't, I'm not saying it was a bad memo. I'm saying, for example, there was a piece that said we're losing $80,000 in parking meter revenue because that would be maxing out those spots that were converted to car-free, where we would need to take a better look at that because we know mostly people then park on different streets, so Fourth and the side streets and everything, so that wasn't really accurate. I think there's some other data that potentially wasn't included about how long people are starting to stay, or how, I think it's called stay time. I don't, Director Cooper-Smith would know more about it than I do, where we're looking at cell phone pings and folks are staying longer when it's, when cars aren't on it. So they're going, that sort of, you assume from that, they're going to multiple spots instead of like going to Nick's and eating and leaving. So I think there are other things to be considered, I guess, that weren't in the memo. Also conversations with DBI and the Downtown Kirkwood Association that at least I've had.
Thank you. It sounds like now there are more conversations happening between the council and the staff about the best way forward. Do you feel good about the timeline? It sounds like, I know on our end it feels compressed the way we're receiving it. There's always an option to do something again, temporary in the service of doing something better for the long term. as opposed to trying to start something, this new indefinite plan immediately? Do you feel like this is the right, I guess, weigh the options of this year versus next year with more conversation and process?
It's up for debate, I would say. I mean, I really try to come into draft ordinances and like things that I draft with, I don't know, a lot of curiosity still. So I think a lot of people are involved in this. And because this has been in existence for years, it doesn't feel new to me. It feels like we're moving it from the outdoor dining ordinance and just, so we're kind of separating it from outdoor dining and just putting it in Title 15. So to me, it feels more of a fix than a big change. And that doesn't exactly answer your question. Do I think there's enough time before we go on recess? I think there is. I think that it wasn't seen as something that needed to be discussed until it became on council's agenda, which is okay. Everyone has been so busy. I mean, the PUD has taken up an ungodly amount of council hours and staff hours. I know that, and that was why this got pushed as well. I mean, initially we were looking at trying to close it to cars by Little 5, but the PUD just took over. So that's just kind of the nature of where we are now, and so it could happen or it couldn't happen. I think another question is, if it were to pass in this time span, does it go into effect soon or does it go into effect in 27?
I'll ask a process question, maybe to Mr. Seabor's concern. It sounds like there's another conversation that Mr. Flaherty talks about, which is what's the right amount of code to have in Title 15? Should we be removing that? And this is suggesting adding some new specifics at the point we're talking about removing them. I know there's a distinction sometimes between policy, which is high level, and procedure details. And some of these, like to me, the name of a street or the section of a sidewalk is a detail. So I guess I have some concern about what's the right amount to add to the Title 15.
Yeah, that's one of the questions on my mind that I don't honestly have a good answer for. I think as at meetings like this in the past, every month it feels like Commissioner Flaherty at these meetings will ask what's the latest on those discussions. And I think essentially for the Title 15 discussion, I'm looking forward to our council legal team and the city administrative legal team to work together on it, and happy to be a part of it. And some of those things are more detailed, like how many feet from an intersection to another is always, or is no parking. This is a bigger picture policy thing, but where does it land on that? I couldn't definitively say because we haven't had that chance to get into those weeds yet.
Thank you, Mr. Strasburg. We'll go to Mr. Kopic.
Well, I've got some questions just on this kind of information that's available. Like, how much is this used during the daytime on the weekends? I mean, even during the weekdays, if the whole road's closed off, how much use is there? I mean, people eating breakfast uptown at Monday at 9 a.m. or, I mean, how many of these stores or businesses are in favor of closing down the street? I mean, is that data that's available?
I would encourage you to answer responses from everybody, but I know that there's been surveys of businesses done. I suspect that you're going to hear that restaurants tend to favor it, non-restaurants tend not to, but there are experts here in the room.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an excellent question, obviously, and can bring that. We have information from the outreach that we did prior to the February meeting, and I can share that, reshare that with Councilmember Rosenbarger. The other tool that we have is from Placer AI, and it uses cell phone data to, according to a footprint that you draw to show how many phones are in that space, for how long, where do they go, where do they come from. And the dwell time is included in the memo, and we can share that. And I'd also be more than willing to just sit with you if you or any of the other council members want to look at that tool, draw we can do whatever. But we could bring any information back to this body that would like to see it. We could also include the original memo. I mean, there's a lot in there. I understand that council members have questions about some of the way the conclusions were made, but there's a lot of information there.
I guess, and the other question I had is, so how many parking spaces are lost, not necessarily the revenue, but where do those, how many spaces are there, 80 or 50, or where do those people go park at?
I can look that up.
I suspect Commissioner Volin would be able to answer that faster than me, but it's included in our, I would just have to look it up, sorry. And I take Councilmember Rosenbarger's point that there's better or broader assessment of that. Sorry, I'm just flipping through the memo to see if I can get a number on the parking spots. It just looks like it's translated to dollar amounts rather than actual spots. But we can, I think we could look at the full downtown footprint. We could look at number of spots. I don't know what else, but we can look at that.
I guess the last question I have, for Andrew, I guess, is how's fire protection provided in that stretch? I mean, I know, like you can get an ambulance or a stretcher in there, but how do they get in front of, Buskirk Chumley or someplace like that?
Yeah, I know in the past when the various blocks have been closed, there's been some intentionality about making sure, like, if outdoor dining is out there, there's at least X number of feet of free and clear width that can accommodate what fire needs. And the bollards are in place, and there's a plan for them to be able to access it through those bollards. So they've definitely been coordinated with I think EMS providers certainly prefer the road to be open, but if it is closed, it's been closed, and they've had a plan in place.
Okay. Thanks.
I just wanted to chime in based on the question. I'm taking from the 2018 Parking Commission report. 100 East Kirkwood had 16 spots, 200 had 16, 300 East Kirkwood had 18 spots, 400 East Kirkwood had 23, and 500 East Kirkwood has 14. Now, so that's 87 spots over the 5 blocks, not all of which have been closed at any given time. I also would point out that the net revenue for the 3 blocks that had typically been closed, 100, 400, and 500, in 2018 was close to $150,000. So if it was only 80,000 foregone in revenue, I'm going to be interested to know how that number was arrived at. But there's more questions, I think. Any other first round questions? Second round question, Mr. Stossberg.
Just to reply on the parking spots case, I think another useful lens is business revenue to the extent they're willing to share during these different experiments, because I know some places have found that when they take out parking spots, they add bike parking or other amenities, that their sales go up. So it's actually good for sales. So just because we're losing parking spots doesn't necessarily mean we're losing business revenue. But that's what, at this point, I believe we would have data for that.
We asked businesses to describe the impact on their operations, and we wouldn't ask them to share actual sales data, of course, since it would be in the public record. And it was mixed. I think, restaurants largely benefited from it, and I think banks, the churches struggled with it. Sorry, I'm just summarizing what I recall from memory, but yeah, it's mixed is where it was at. And then interestingly, CVS reported no difference in sales, which I thought was, I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting item.
Okay, further questions before we go to the public for comment? Again, this is a kind of an informal conversation. We have to decide what we want to do about it, but let's open it up to the public. If there's a member of the public, there's no one in the chamber, but is there a member of the public online who would like to speak on the question of ordinance 2612, which is working its way through the process, which is we're considering. Please speak now.
I have a Paul Rousseau who should be able to unmute.
Okay, please state your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you, Paul Rousseau. I was going to speak about this at the council meeting, but I'll speak now. I strongly support the proposed ordinance, and I thank the council members Rosenbarger and Daley very much for introducing this. In my view, the ordinance reestablishes a closure that is not new, and therefore a quick timeline is not only appropriate but necessary. Summer is upon us. Kirkwood should be closed as soon as possible for the sake of continuity with last year. In my view, of all the consequences of the coronavirus pandemic, the seasonal closure of Kirkwood was probably the best. I think the closure is forward-thinking, and it represents Bloomington well. Regarding the exact language of the ordinance, I see that it would allow the city engineer to suspend the closure for up to 90 days on the basis of an emergency, if I've read that right. That's half the summer. That seems excessive to me. I would suggest instead that 15 days would be more appropriate for any emergency, because 2 weeks would reach the next scheduled city council meeting, at which time the city engineer could make the case for a longer suspension. In the unlikely event that a lengthy emergency occurred during a scheduled summer recess of the council, then I suppose the council would need to convene an emergency meeting. That's all I've got. Thanks for letting me input.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else online who would like to comment on the discussion over a potential ordinance 2612? No other takers online? Last call for public comment. Let's come back to the commission. So again, the question before us isn't what should the city policy be? The question is, how do we want to address it, if at all? In order to, if the ordinance goes on the track that Councilmember Rosenbarger said, we would have to schedule a special session to have input on it before it goes to council. We don't have to have input on it. I am glad that it's been brought before us, and I'm grateful to everyone for being willing to address it. But having said that, what thoughts do commissioners have? Mr. Drumming.
A question, a rhetorical question, I guess, is there any compromise, and could it be made a one-way, like a one lane, one way, and have it partially closed? But to answer your question, I think it's, my thought is it's far enough along with the people that get paid to make these decisions that I don't think, I'm not dying to provide input on it. If the will of the group is we should provide input, I'm fine, but I'm fine not providing input on it as a commission.
Other thoughts? Ms. Tremitis.
I'll just say I also regularly go to the Kirkwood business meetings, and I think the major feedback I hear from that group is just like consistency, like year over year. I feel like it's almost that they don't really care which way a decision goes, but just that they really value that whatever it is remains the same year after year, so that they can either invest, make like real true investments in infrastructure for the street, or not, and make other plans for it. And then also I'll just mention Bloomington Transit. When we used to go down Kirkwood, and I believe back in 2021, we removed all of our routes from the street in anticipation of the street being regularly closed. And we have no plans to ever really go back to the street for that reason. So that's, in our head, it's kind of an off-limits street anyway. Doesn't really affect us too much. And last year we ran the summer shuttle because of concerns about like lack of parking and like lack of accessibility, and the shuttle just went like extremely underutilized. And we saw, especially from some of the different festivals on the events that on Kirkwood, that limited parking was not a reason that kept people from Kirkwood. People went there when there was things to do there. They found parking just fine. They walked there just fine. So, feedback.
Further thoughts? Mr. Stotsberg?
I see this through some different lenses. One is, as multiple people have pointed out, this isn't new. We've been talking about Kirkwood, when to open it and close it for years, and in some ways I think it's fair to consider it as something that predates the Transportation Commission. It's something that's been talked about before. The other lens is it's very much an interdisciplinary question. It is not simply a transportation question. Very much also a business question, a community question. And to me, it's less clear what the role of the Transportation Commission should be. I don't feel comfortable just making a recommendation about the transportation piece because it's much more than that. It has to do with we're impacting the lives of, it sounds like if we go with this, the businesses that are there may change over time. More of the type that are successful will appear and some of those that are less successful may move. It's a big question for our community and not just one for transportation. Given that and the timeline goals, yeah, I guess my question is like, what role should we play here?
Okay, well, did you have a? Okay, let me weigh in here. As a veteran of the Parking Commission, I did not come to this commission primarily because I was concerned about safety. Not that I'm not concerned about safety, simply that that's my supervillain origin story. So as far as parking goes, like I had an immediate question about the cited $80,000 as a loss of parking revenue. There's just so many problems with that phrase in my head. Like, we don't, we certainly shouldn't be, and I like to think we don't, make policy based on whether or not we can make money off of parking. I pointed out back in 2017 that the overall system of parking, the garages, the lots, the parking meters, residential neighborhood programs, barely breaks even when you add up all the revenue from meters and the lesser revenue from garages and lots. That our system only started paying for itself when the meters were installed, okay? So for all this time, we've been sort of been at this equilibrium where the public parking that the city of Bloomington offers breaks even, or roughly so, maybe loses a little bit of money. We're talking about several $1 million a year, $4, $5, $6 million a year, and that's how much it costs to provide it. So let's not have any illusions about the revenue from meters being somehow, I mean, I think some revenue is used for other things, but it's, that was what the commission was trying to establish, was to what extent does us offering parking cost the city? So that's an important question, and there are other veterans of the Parking Commission on this body. They're not here today, but I don't want to make policy based on, well, we lost money on, that's not how parking even works. One thing I want to get is the total amount of revenue for 2025. We don't have it handy. In 2024, there was almost $2.9 million in parking meter revenue. If the figure for 2025 is anywhere close to that, I think that the $80,000 question is, should not have been a primary reason for arguing whether to close or open Kirkwood. But yes, this is a commercial issue. It's also we have to weigh the commercial concerns with the right of people to get around. So there are regularly people who are elderly or disabled who express their dismay at a street closure because they have difficulty getting to a place on Kirkwood they were accustomed to. I take their concern seriously. And for a long time, I've asked a similar question to why is it that we can't squeeze a drive lane to an inch of its life to allow cars to go through at 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour. That would satisfy a problem like that. If we're talking about a citywide speed limit of as low as 20 miles an hour, which I've heard is something that is being considered at levels above us, this dovetails with that goal. would it cost more in infrastructure to build? Like I asked this question when I was on city council, can't we just leave one lane open? Can't we put Jersey barriers up to block one lane off? And the answer was, it was just way too much in material and effort to do. I think we would have to, I sort of still favor that idea, but I don't know enough to really, weigh in on it. I think we definitely need more information. I think this topic should be discussed. I'd like to see it discussed as soon as possible, but I'm open to the pleasure of commissioners as to how quickly we'd like to take it up. I mean, we're going to have, if we want an opportunity to meaningfully impact the legislation, we need to have a special session. If we want to take up an inquiry, we perhaps can, take our time to do that. So I think that's sort of where I see the commission. And I know that the two other parking commissioners, former parking commissioners, would have a great interest in this discussion. But it's up to us to decide whether we want to, what effort we want to make. With that, is there further thought, any feedback for me or for others? Anybody want to make a motion? What do we want to do? I try not to make motions because I'm the chair, okay? I don't want to make motions for people. I could do it, but I'd rather it come from somebody else. Any thoughts? I have people to my left.
I'm in favor of a wait and see because it's going to come to council.
Because the point is that we can offer the deliberation session they may not be able to schedule. And they may ask, what does the Transportation Commission think? That's why I thought we should perhaps act more expeditiously.
Okay. I think in this case, I'll look to you to make the motion.
Okay, yeah, I'll do it. Okay, well, then I'm ready to make a motion to schedule a meeting for June 1, because that gives us some time to react. It doesn't give staff a lot of time to get ready. We could also do a meeting on June 8th, and either one ought to give us the opportunity to weigh in meaningfully before the likely final meeting, June 10th. I have Ryan Roebling.
We have a planning session on June 8th already planned.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's convenient. Can we make it a double? Any issues with that?
Not from staff's point of view.
Okay. Let me ask staff over here, would a June 8th meeting give you enough time to prepare if we were to put this on our docket as a case?
I can only speak for myself. Legal is a key part of it. I certainly want legal to have a chance to weigh in. And,
yeah.
June 8th is also a plan commission meeting. So
who?
June 8th is a plan commission meeting.
Oh.
So this room will be used for that, and I will be at that meeting. So if you want my attendance, I will probably not be here.
Will we be in McCloskey? Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Seabour. Ms. Coopersmith?
I'm available. I'll do my best to prepare kind of some of the data points that you all have talked about today and that Councilmember Rosenbarger has discussed. So do my best.
Great, thank you. Mr. Seabour, maybe a representative from engineering could attend in your stead? I don't think it requires you there, although I know you want to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I'd love to be there, but certainly if there is a meeting, we will do all that we can to support that meeting. And I imagine other departments impacted would try their best as well.
Okay, so, all right, thank you. That helps. I don't know what motion I need to make here. I think that if we already have a meeting scheduled, we don't need to schedule a special meeting. We can just put it on the agenda, or what?
You will need to, that would be not a planning session. You would need it would need to fall under regular hearing. So you would need a special session, a vote to have a special session.
Okay, and do you care whether we do this before or after the planning session?
Yes, because we will have consultants coming in, zooming in at 5:30.
how long do you anticipate the planning session to be? Is it an hour or more?
The plan is for an hour. I would give it some wiggle room, maybe, and I would give it a little bit of wiggle room, maybe 90 minutes, just to be safe.
Okay. So if we were to propose a special session for June 8th at 7 p.m., you would find that acceptable? Okay. Any other? I'm going to make a motion here. I'm going to make a motion to call a special session of the Transportation Commission for June 8th at 7 p.m., immediately to follow the planning session at 5:30, on which the question of Ordinance 2612 will be the primary item on the agenda.
Is there a second for this motion?
Does nobody want a second?
I'm out of town today, so.
Okay.
I'm out of town, I did too, so I feel bad second against the devil.
You can bind your fellow commissioners. They won't
Second.
resent you. All right, good. Yeah. So you're running the
Oh,
meeting now.
yes, okay. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote?
Stramitis?
Yes.
Vollen?
Yes.
Drummy?
Yes.
Strasburg?
Yes.
Kopic?
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to present this as this is a resolution, right, Mr. Ubling?
I'm sorry, I was not paying attention. What was the question?
In order to weigh in on the ordinance, we have to have a resolution, right?
Oh, you would like, yeah, we can bring it forward as a resolution. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, okay. So it'll be in the form of a resolution. It'll be the case we take up at the special session on June 8th at 7 p.m. Thank you all for that. Thanks. I'm trying. I really am. Okay. Is there any other comment on this issue before we move on to the rest of the agenda? Okay, thank you all. Let's go now to general public comment on items not on the docket. We did have a written public comment submitted by Paul Rousseau on parking on Grant Street. That's in your packet. There's nobody else in chambers who wants to make public comment. Is there anyone online who would like to speak to the Transportation Commission on an item that we have not already discussed? If so, please raise your hand in Zoom, and you'll have 3 minutes. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak? Final call. All right. I think that's it. If there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned, and we will reconvene June 8th at 5:30 in the McCloskey Room for a planning session, followed immediately by a special session at 7 p.m. in the McCloskey Room. Thank you.